Go! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here with YoVideogames, and I'm here to talk about a subject that I've been talked about before, but I think it bears repeating again. And we live in an age where people just love to be angry about things. In fact, are kind of easily led astray just by getting angry at things. And one of the things that you unfortunately see a whole awful lot of is people kind of getting mad at a dev or blaming a dev, a game developer for, oh, why'd you make this game? This game sucks. And it kind of irks me a little bit because I feel like the real root of the problem here with, per se, why are you not getting the sequel to your beloved, obscure late 90s, early 2000s classic game from PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 or the N64 or whatever? And let me tell you why you're not getting that. And it's because the publisher will not greenlight it. Because there's probably a group of developers out there somewhere who absolutely love your whatever 2000s era obscure game that you love and would love to make a follow-up. Maybe even have all kinds of plans and ways to make it, but they can't do it because no one's going to give them money for it. And because the game industry is in a huge quagmire. Let's just, for example, around in 2021, there were about 500 layoffs in the game industry for the year of 21. In 2022, there were 8,000. In 2023, there were 9,000. 2024, there were 18,000. LinkedIn is predicting about another 11 to 12,000 for this year, leading us to a nice total of 45,000 jobs getting laid off in the last 4 years. So we're literally losing our future here. We're losing our ability to enjoy games because it's actually being taken away from us because we're literally getting rid of people who make video games in the name of short-term investment gains. And the most obvious one, and the one that I think a lot of people will always go back to is the poor beleaguered game that was Concord. And recently on the website, alifewellwasted.com, all one word, alifewellwasted.com, Robert Ashley did his podcast with former guests, and he didn't say what they worked on, but I mean, like, listen to the episode, like, it's you kind of already know. Like, I don't even know. I mean, I know they're probably covering their butts, in this podcast, whatever game these developers talked about, but it's like, it's obvious, like, we know what the game is. And it was really interesting because they had multiple artists on it, and they say their names, and I can't remember who was who because there were so many, but like, it was interesting how, some devs were like, they came in and they're like, yeah, I could see it kind of right away that this wasn't probably going to hit. It wasn't really interesting me as much as it was mentioning others. And a lot of them were blindsided by this sort of just complete apathetic tone to it. But again, if you want to listen to the whole podcast, and it's a very fascinating, enlightening look at a group of developers at a unnamed Seattle studio who worked on a project for 4 years, and then the studio got shut down. You can go listen to it at alifewellwasted.com by Robert Ashley. But what I wanted to get to was there was a point in this podcast, and again, I don't remember. There were so many names. I actually have no idea. One of the former devs of this unnamed studio talked about how they didn't understand why it was shut down so fast. Because like the game got shut down really quickly, and then the studio got shut down within 2 months of the game being shut down, maybe or less, like 2 months or less. We know which game it is. But here's the thing: is this developer was saying that I don't understand why they didn't put us on support for other projects, because the studio was in Seattle, right next to Sucker Punch, amongst many other studios. And then there's all kinds of other studios that are just within the same time zone within California. But yeah, like there's lots and lots of studios they could have been supporting. They could have picked themselves up, dusted themselves off, and got to do it. But you have one failure and you're done. And this is why I think this is so important. Because here's where you should be mad: is you should be mad at investors. First of all, they're the person you should probably be mad at the most right now. Never be mad at a developer. If a developer makes a stinky game, okay, whatever. Don't buy the stinky game. But if all of a sudden no games are being made that you want made, you know who you should be mad at? The fucking investors, because they robbed your future. Because we've laid off 45,000 people in the last 4 years because we're not in a pandemic anymore and people aren't buying games as much. And now this unnamed studio, on this unnamed project, and I hate the fact that you have to dance around that. Make a good point where it's like, okay, we made, it was a car crash, right? But it sucks that like we were immediately just like, okay, gone, everyone gone, lost your job, go find another job somewhere else, go move on to these other. And why this should upset you is because if this happened 30 years ago, it'd be no big deal, because games cost less, games took less to make. But at the same time, this unnamed studio was owned by a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. A company who could have, if they wanted to, very easily have eaten this cost. Okay, this game was a flop from the get-go, but you know what? This is a developer in Washington State, which is home to tons and tons, thousands of other developers of highest caliber. You have Bungie. I know Bungie's not on Bungie's not having a good time right now. We got Bungie, Sucker Punch from the Ghost of Tsushima YoVideogames guys, and amongst many other developers, and Nintendo Software Technology up there. Like there is a talent pool in this part of the world, lots of them, and you have a whole brand new studio of mostly veterans, and it's like. And instead of like, okay, well, all right, that was a failure. I want you to imagine, and I'm gonna use footage here because I don't think any like honest to God good footage of this exists any other way. So this is from Matt McMuscles' What Happened series, which you could watch also on YouTube. I present to you Naughty Dog's first game. Okay, Way of the Warrior on 3DO. This piece of shit game. With this piece of shit system, should have, in all fairness to all the other studios that get shut down after one failure, this should have been the end of Naughty Dog completely. But let's just think about that for a second. Imagine if you looked at this piece of shit game and went, "Oh fuck these guys, these a-holes ain't worth squat," Imagine Naughty Dog not existing anymore. Imagine not getting Crash Bandicoot. Imagine not getting Jak and Daxter. Imagine not getting Uncharted. Imagine not getting Last of Us. I'm sure the Chuds would be happy about that. But it's like, you wouldn't get Naughty Dog. You wouldn't get so many games if we just based Naughty Dog off their immediate first failure, founding the studio. Again, I understand that there's a lot more money being thrown around at this studio in Seattle on a much more expensive project. But again, Way of the Warrior was not technically owned. They made a deal with Universal Interactive, and they weren't even outright owned. So, yeah, like try to imagine, if you will, Naughty Dog not existing because their first game was an absolute fucking dog turd. Okay? Speaking of dog turds, imagine, if you will, never getting Siphon Filter. Or Days Gone. Days Gone's whatever. I mean, but like, imagine not getting, Days Gone or any of the Siphon Filter games. Why? Because Sony Bend was the company that made Bubsy fucking 3D. Another giant piece of shit video game. Imagine, if you will, not getting Siphon Filter at all. Because, wow, Bubsy 3D, what a piece of shit. Let's not do anything with that company anymore. But here we are. Ben was allowed to survive and live on and made Siphon Filter. And again, not the worst game. I'll pull up one more for you just as another example. And if you'll notice, there's a trend here with all of these. These are all game developers for the exact same first-party publisher. Here's an interesting one for you. Now, this game is not bad per se, but this game is by no means, didn't set the world on fire, most people don't know this game exists. Most people don't really care about this game. This isn't Wipeout. This isn't even Extreme G. This is Kinetica. This is Kinetica, a game about these weird ass dudes on Elastigirl bikes, in this weird futuristic race game that probably did not sell all that great. By all accounts, was kind of a flop. Do you know what you don't get if, say, like, oh, Kinetica came out, this didn't really do too well. You know, I don't know. This studio's, they're not really worth it. They're in Santa Monica. They're in, like, the most, second most expensive part of California. Let's not fund them. They don't need another game, do they? These guys are just, like, these guys are mediocre at best. Let's not do Kinetica. You know what you don't get? If you were to take the success of Kinetica and shut down the studio because of Kinetica, you know what you don't get? You don't get God of War. You don't get any God of War. You don't even get like the Twisted Metal Black or anything like that. Like, well, actually, Twisted Metal Black came out before, but that's not the point. You don't get God of War. You don't get the God of War trilogy. You don't get the original God of War. You don't get Ascension. You don't get the reboot. You don't get nothing. You lose. You get nothing. Good day, sir. So, now the reason I picked all these three games out, this is Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Sony Bend. What is the connection there? These are all Sony first-party studios, and they all came out the gate with relative pieces of shit. Like Kinetica, maybe not a piece of shit. Kinetica is probably a 7 out of 10 at best. Maybe. I don't want to be too mad on Kinetica. I've not even played Kinetica. I don't want to be too down on Kinetica. But I just want to reiterate with all of you that, like, Way of the fucking Warrior, okay? Like, an absolute god-awful Mortal Kombat clone, and Bubsy fucking 3D, okay? Like, we cannot immediately destroy an entire studio's worth of work because they had a bad idea. And to be fair with this studio that shall not be named in Seattle that published a game that, may be the biggest flop of all time. A big part of sharing that blame is the fact that the fucking lizard at the top of the pyramid scheme of Sony PlayStation Studios, he wanted this. He wanted 12 of these. Yeah, I'm talking about Little Dick Jim Ryan and his 12 gas game initiative within Sony, which has so far only spelled disaster unless you're Helldivers 2. So I think a little bit of the blame needs to go to the top here for the people who are like, yeah, we need this. Let's do this. Again, the people in the podcast on A Life Well Wasted, they had, most of them have nothing but good things to say about the game. Most of them believe in their game, but they do admit the marketing was wrong. The messaging was wrong. They totally screwed up the reveal. They know that. They know that, like, it confused everyone. It looked like a heist game or a single player game, and then it turned out to just be a hero shooter. I mean, I don't know how much more I can dance around the game I'm talking about here, but yeah, like, so they know like the message was wrong, but they believe in their product. They believe they made a good game. Maybe they did. I don't know. What you don't know, none of us know, because none of us played their game. But on the other hand, the other side of that coin is that this is what Big Papa Sony wanted. Big Papa Sony wanted a gas game, and they got it, and no one wanted it. Nobody liked it. So shut down the whole studio, disrupt everyone's lives there. And that's kind of to me, I think what you really need to be mad about here is, one, your future is being stolen out from you. Because when a studio's gone, that's it. No more. Like, you just don't get it anymore. If you want to see, if you want to know what you want to know what that's like ask us Banjo-Kazooie fans. Rare's not even gone. I mean, it's had its plenty of layoffs and it's had its departures. But if you're a fan of Banjo and Conquer, you know, when a studio basically changes hands or gets shrunk down or whatever, yeah, there it's gone. Ask Crash Bandicoot fans how they're feeling. They had a nice whiff of comeback with Toys for Bob for Crash 4, but like Spyro fans, they got that trilogy, and then after that, it was like, eh. And before that, it was Skylanders and stuff like that. So, you know, your future is just pretty much just being stolen from you. And again, it's not even just the legacy IPs that's being kind of just stolen away from you here. It's also the fact that you're losing out on the potential of what they could do with a brand new IP. Because if you looked at, again, you look at Way of the Warrior on the 3DO, do you sit there and see Uncharted 2, Uncharted 4 coming out of that same studio? You see Jak and Daxter 3, Jak 3? No, you don't. You don't see anything. You see nothing. You see no potential there. But it was there. And they proved it there. Why? Because they weren't shut down for making one piece of shit. So, again, you should be mad. You really should be mad at these publishers. You really should be mad at these investors. And the really shitty thing is, too, is that the people who decide, it's always funny how we never hear about the highest people deciding, oh, well, you know, my gas games didn't do well. You know, I guess I'll retire. I guess I'll retire with a couple tens of millions of dollars, because flying back and forth to America and London every weekend on my private jet is just, it's getting so hard on me and my family. Oh, you know, let me wipe away my tears with, you know, my $100 bills. They're not suffering. And in fact, the most they do is they fail upward. They quit, retire, go to another company, and then they bomb that company and retire with a couple more tens of millions of dollars. Look at Don Matrick if you want any proof of this. So, really, next time a developer makes a game that collectively you're not interested in and it bombs and it's like, oh, well, okay. I'm not saying you should have bought, I'm not saying we should buy we should buy every game, we should make sure every game is a success. Hell no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's be real about who we should be mad at here. Because it's the person greenlighting it, the person who writes the check, and the investors who are literally stealing the future of video games out from under our feet. Because 45,000 less developers means that there are dozens, if not hundreds of games now that could have been the next God of War, could have been the next Jak and Daxter, could have been the next Uncharted, could have been the next, Siphon Filter, and we'll just never know now. Now it's just never going to happen because we can't tolerate one failure in the game industry. Not one game can fail. And if a game succeeds, well, we'll probably lay you off anyways as well because we got to make them short-term gains. And as far as like future, I don't know. The best thing that could possibly happen, the best fucking thing that could possibly happen is people to go, if they can go independent, make a game, form a new publisher, form a new development branch, and stay private. Just stay out of this public stock-traded hellhole, this griftland casino that is just ruining every aspect of every part of entertainment that we all love. So, again, I just kind of wanted to bring this back up and be like, okay, next time a game studio gets shut down and gets lost to the ether forever, let's make sure we remind ourselves who's to blame here, because it's not the developers, okay? Because most of the most of the time, well, they decided to make a shitty game. No, they didn't. Most of the time, they are making games. They are taking an order from what is essentially their contractor in a way, or more than their contractor, like literally their owner literally comes in and says, do this, I want this, make this. Okay, I'll go ahead and make that. I'll make it the best I can. Comes out and it flops. Oops. I have personally watched it happen. I have literally watched it happen. I have seen a developer that you personally would know. I've seen them get bought. And then I've seen them been pushed to make a genre that they hadn't done quite before. all for the sake of live service integration, and the project never materialized because the billion-dollar corpo wanted a game by a provenly talented developer, and when they were they were giving them what they wanted, and then the writing became clear on the wall that this was going to be a flop, project got shut down. So it wasn't even you cannot sit there and be like, developers shouldn't make another hero shooter. I'm like, I'm sure most developers would kind of agree, but when you're owned or your studio gets created because of an investment from big giant corpo, and they say, well, you want this, we Fortnite's successful, make us the next Fortnite. Okay, I like to eat. I would like to be employed. I will make you the best thing that I can to my ability. And then people don't want it. It's kind of like, I still can't blame I cannot blame the developers for that. Cannot blame them for that. There are obviously situations where things are a little different. Again, like, there's another part of me that, like, oh man, I wish so hard I could go back in time. I wish I was big enough. I wish I was known enough on the internet, or just had that actual influencer clout that I don't have. I wish I could have gone to Rumbleverse or to Concord early in development and been like, guys, this art style is not going to appeal, because you might, when you just Rumbleverse in particular, I would love to have been someone in there at the consultation level at the earliest stages of development and been like, okay, this is a cool concept. Like, Rumbleverse is a cool concept. Those of us who played it would agree. And I would love to sit there and be like, don't make it look like this. Just don't. Because sometimes, like, you when you're in the trenches making the game, you're like so ingrained in it, and it plays well. You've got something fun on your hands, and you go with whatever art style you go with. Sometimes it helps to have an outside source go in and go like, these character designs are butt fuck ugly, and no one is going to want to pay money for them, so don't. just fucking don't. Like, please don't sabotage your game like this early. Like, there's part of me that is like, I feel like some games are good games, have great ideas, but oh my god, like, just one simple thing aesthetically ruins the whole game, or the timing is just really bad. And part of me would just love to be able to go in and be like, this is not going to fly. Like, this is not going to catch on. Like, people are not going to want to pay physical money for cosmetics that look like this. So it's like, yeah, man, I wish I could go, but I wish I could be a fly on that wall, in some of these conceptual stages and be like, guys, you might have something here, but we gotta be real with ourselves here. And that was the one thing in this podcast where they talk about, where one of the developers was like, I asked early on, and when my hiring, I said, okay, so this game is like all of these other games that are coming out. What are we offering that's different? And he says, I actually never got a solid answer to that question. And I was like, yeah, that's damning right there. And again, I don't even blame the developers necessarily for this, because the one writing the check was the one who said, we want 12 live service games. Give us a live service game. Okay, I'm making you a live service game. And then someone on the inside of it, like, someone at the ground level is like, what are we offering that's different? Don't worry about it. Okay. Like, there you go. So again, remember where to direct your ire, and let's work towards, like, we need to find some way to stand up and be like, guys, even if we don't want to buy a game, because we should never buy a game, we should never be supporting a game just out of charity or out of, like, pity. Don't ever support a game. These are luxury products. But we also have to sit there and be like, hey, I like video games. I would like there to be more video games. Could you possibly not fucking lay off the people who are making these things that I can't obviously do on my own? So we could have them maybe turn around and give us the next Uncharted, the next God of War, the next whatever. So there needs to be more pushback from this. If we can piss and moan and bitch all over the internet about, like, how ugly a game is, how ugly Marvel Infinite looks, I think we could probably do a lot better for ourselves and say, like, look, not the project I wanted, not the project I wanted, but I would like to see what else a group of talented individuals could do somewhere else. You know? So I think if we're going to be squeaky wheels, let's put it to some good use. So, and that's all I'm going to say on that subject. You guys let me know what you think. And I will see you on the channel.